Hello again. Hello again, dear community on YouTube and Rumble channels. Second news update for today's second live stream because I was unable to make extra content for Patreon and Boosty. So therefore, as a compensation, I will make second update. And we have quite important developments, quite important news to discuss. So hopefully you will find this episode informative and useful, and if so, please don't forget to like the video and leave some commentary after news segment. As always, I will be engaged with the chat, and let's have some 15, 20, 30 minutes of community chat, exchange of opinions in real time. That's being said, dear friends, let's start with the news segment now. And first of all, I'm going to give you sort of a breaking news because I personally did not expect this kind of stuff from U.S. General, by the way, acting general. One thing is when retired generals, retired 3-4 star generals are becoming regular guests of all sorts of propaganda outlets in the West and are talking some crap, but different, it is a different when acting general is making some crazy statements. And we have this report that U.S. general threatens to wipe Kaliningrad region off the face of the earth. So the commander of the U.S. Army in Europe and Africa, Christopher Donahue, said that NATO has the ability to destroy the Kaliningrad region in record time. So Donahue said the US military and its NATO allies have the capability to quickly destroy the Kaliningrad region, according to Defense News reports. Kaliningrad is about 75 kilometers wide and surrounded on all sides by NATO, he said, and their army, US Army and its allies are now able to wipe this enclave off the face of the earth at the speed that has never been seen before. Well, well, that's quite something, isn't it? When yet again, acting general of U.S. is threatening to wipe off the earth one of the Russian regions. This is, I would not say declaration of the war, but this is quite clearly close to that point. And I don't think this general made such a statement without consultation with the Pentagon, with the White House. This is a clearly message to Russia after a few days since Trump issued his ultimatum, 50-day ultimatum. And well, dear friends, share your take on the situation, what you think is going on, what is happening with this general, particularly on or with US, with Pentagon. But obviously, we all understand that attack on any Russian region, by the way, direct open attack by US will mean immediate retaliatory strikes, and that immediate retaliatory strike may not necessarily be with only with conventional weapons, and most likely would not be only with conventional weapons, right? And so I think this statement of general clearly demonstrates direction that U.S. and its NATO allies are heading towards. This is clearly open confrontation with Russia, open military confrontation with Russia, and I don't even know what to say about it, man. We are ready. If you want to start war with us, okay, bring it on, man. We will wipe you out from the face of the earth. That's what we're gonna do, man. We will exterminate all of you, motherfuckers. And I'm telling this to Western elites, man, first of all. We will turn them into radioactive dust. That's how it is, man. Right? And if there was any time to wake up for Western societies, man, I think that time was yesterday. But maybe they will wake up today or tomorrow until they can't do it. Literally, until they can, right? Because who knows what these psychopaths gonna do day after tomorrow, they might actually attack Russia, and they clearly are preparing for it, dear friends. I remind you that NATO, US, UK, France, Germany, and other NATO member states play key role in attacks on Russian early warning system. Remember, some time ago there was attack on quite a while ago. At this point, there was attack on Russian early warning system, part of a nuclear deterrent, right, in southern Russia. Relatively recently, there was attack on Russian nuclear triad again, when a number of strategical bombers were destroyed and damaged, right? There is unconfirmed reports that NATO countries even try to target Russian naval bases where nuclear submarines are located, although this information have not been confirmed by any official whatsoever, but rumors nevertheless are circulating on the internet. So everything we know at this point is clearly indicates that NATO is preparing for direct confrontation with Russia. And yet again, dear friends, Russia will retaliate in that case with most likely, by the way, with their extreme force, which means that, well, we all know what that means, man. I don't think I need to elaborate on that. And even though I was, checking some media outlets on response from Moscow on these crazy statements of U.S. general, I did not find any comment from Kremlin. I didn't find any comment from any state institution, foreign ministry, defense ministry, or any other, right? But what I did find is this statement from Russian lawmaker who reminds U.S. general of Russian nuclear doctrine, right? And let's go through some details here. NATO attack on Russia's Baltic exclave of Kaliningrad will trigger an adequate response from Russia, including measures stipulated by its nuclear doctrine, said Leonid Slutsky, the chairman of the International Affairs Committee of the Russian State Duma, low house of parliament. And we have a quote from his statements: an attack on Kaliningrad region will mean an attack on Russia with all the retaliatory measures stipulated, among other things, by its nuclear doctrine. The US general should take this into account before making such a statement. Slutsky, who is also the leader of the Liberal Democratic Party of Russia, told the TASS news agency. And I think Slutsky basically said everything there, right? Most likely, Peskov, press spokesman of the Russian president, will be asked about it tomorrow, and he will say something similar, right? Because obviously, attack on Russia by NATO will trigger Russian nuclear response. That's how it is, and the only question we might ask then, scale of this confrontation. Will it transform into a full-scale nuclear exchange, which will mean end of humanity as we know it, or it will be some local scale or not full-scale exchange, by the way, although I find it difficult to believe that it is possible to exchange nuclear strikes a couple of times and don't go in full nuclear exchange. So if nukes being launched against each other, that means end of everything, quite literally. And I don't know, dear friends, what to comment on that. Yet again, if there was any time for the Western societies to wake up, that time was yesterday. Today may be not too late, but tomorrow probably will be. Clearly, we are heading towards the open military confrontation between NATO and Russia. Let again share your take, dear friends, what you think about it. But this is not all. When it comes to madness of the Western political and military elites, if you think these statements of US general is all, no, man. No. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz went to state that Ukrainian armed forces will receive soon long-range systems through industrial cooperation. So he is doubling down basically. So Kiev will soon receive long-range systems, including through industrial cooperation. This was announced by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at the joint press conference with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in London. We have some quotes from him. Of course, we discussed military support for Ukraine in detail, and this is not only about air defense, but also about Ukraine's ability to better defend itself, even with the long-range systems. Dear friends, I remember these long-range systems are not defensive weapons. These are offensive weapon systems, right? Just saying. We call this long-range fire. Merz said Ukraine will soon receive a federal long-range, large-scale support in this area, including through industrial cooperation, which we have concluded with Ukraine. He emphasized specifying that he would not disclose details. However, in the coming weeks and months, another quote from him, in the coming weeks and months, Ukraine will be provided with a much more substantial support with the help of such systems. The German Chancellor stated, I very much hope that the American government, together with the US Congress, will make their decision that the Congress has been preparing for several weeks. Merz added, indicating that he is on close contact with a number of senators who prepared this, and we very much hope that this will then lead to corresponding decision by the American government. The German Chancellor concluded earlier, the British Prime Minister and the German Chancellor signed a bilateral treaty on friendship and cooperation. The British government reported that as a part of agreement reached, London and Berlin will in particular develop new missiles with a range of more than 2,000 kilometers in next decades. In addition, the parties will strengthen cooperation in combating illegal migration and so on. By the way, let's be real here. Long-range weapon systems that Merz is talking about right now is a German-made Taurus cruise missiles, right? And the scheme that globalists and their puppet regimes in the West come up with is that they are calling this industrial cooperation, when basically they're going to disassemble these Taurus missiles and then reassemble formally in Ukraine, and they're going to call it Ukrainian. They're going to call it Ukrainian, right? If this is going to fool anybody in Russia, by the way. They're not going to fool nobody, right? But nevertheless, they are clearly going ahead with this initiative. Also, I remind you that German Chancellor asked US for Typhoon launchers that are used to launch Tomahawk, US-made Tomahawk cruise missile with much more longer range than Taurus missiles, right? And also we should keep in mind that there were reports in the media that US might transfer JASSM cruise missiles formally to Ukraine that have a range, in some of its modifications, have a range up to 800 kilometers, even 1,000 kilometers, right? And so, yes, NATO is moving ahead with this escalation with Russia, and yet again, I mean, soon we're gonna end up in direct confrontation. Confrontation. No doubts about that. At this point, yet again, I mean, at this point, only way we as a humanity can stop this madness that globalists and their puppet regimes are engaged in is to somehow wake up Western societies. But can we do this, really? We can't. That's another tragedy, that Western society is being indoctrinated and zombified and brainwashed so much so in past years by this nonsensical Western propaganda that it's not even theoretically possible at this point to wake up majority of the societies in the West. So therefore, I mean, let's get ready, by the way. Let's get ready for what is about to happen. As much as we can, by the way, if one can prepare for World War III, man. I mean, how are you going to prepare for that? RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that Russia has the right to use weapons against those helping Kiev, the foreign ministry reported. So Moscow believes it has the right to use weapons against military facilities of the countries that allow Kiev to strike deep into Russia with its weapons, said Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. And this is not the first time when such a statement is made from Russian side. And I guess that's why these kind of statements or warnings have not been received seriously in the West, because somewhat similar statements were made by Russian officials when collective West began talks about deploying US ATACMS missiles, also US HIMARS missiles, British Storm Shadow cruise missiles, French Scalp-PG missiles, and hundreds of those missiles already being launched to strike deep into Russian territory. And even though quite a number of Russian officials were saying prior to these strikes that Russia will retaliate if these long strikes will happen, long-range strikes deep into Russia, Russia did not retaliate, right, on military or military infrastructure of the countries that were involved in these attacks. That is US, France, and UK primarily when it comes to ATACMS, Storm Shadow, and Scalp-PG. And therefore, I find it difficult to believe that anybody in this world, especially in the Western world, will take seriously this yet another warning from Russian Foreign Ministry that Moscow believes it has the right to use weapons against military facilities of the countries that are allowing Kiev to strike deep into Russian territory with their weapons. Of course, Moscow has a right to do so, always had, and should retaliate already, but it did not happen. What is your take, dear friends? Will Russia retaliate against Germany when eventually this German US builder Taurus missiles will be launched deep into Russian territory, when eventually and most likely British Storm Shadows and French Scalp-PGs will be launched again to strike deep into Russian territory, when ATACMS will be launched to strike deep into Russian territory, US ATACMS, and when potentially even US JASSM cruise missiles will be launched, or who knows, possibly even Tomahawk missiles. Germany is already asking US, isn't it, for launchers for the Tomahawks, right? Will Russia retaliate on military infrastructure of these NATO countries in that case? I don't know. I truly don't know, man. I would like to know, but I don't. And I've been honest about it. So what is your take? What will happen? But we are getting really, really close to a point when we're gonna see direct clashes between NATO and Russia. U.S. general is openly threatening Russia to wipe out Kaliningrad region and hundreds of thousands of Russian citizens, by the way. I mean, this is serious, man. This is serious, and I have some doubts that if it comes to direct clashes between NATO and Russia, this confrontation will be excuse me, will be conducted only with the conventional weapons. It will transform into a nuclear exchange for sure, right? So it is what it is, man. Every day we are getting closer to big war, Third World War, hot phase of the Third World War, which is already has started basically. Meanwhile, dear friends, RT is reporting that Turkey is setting stage for a chemical disaster. According to Moscow, Ukrainian military is trying to provoke a major ecological disaster close to the front line and blame it on Russia. Defense Ministry in Moscow warned on Thursday. The accusation came from Major General Alexei Artishev, The commander of the Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical protection troops, who briefed their public about alleged Ukrainian violations of an international treaty prohibiting the use of chemical weapons. Khtishev disclosed the documents obtained by the Russian military, in which the deputy director of Ukrainian state-owned company Ukrhim Trans Amiak informed the regional official appointed by Kiev that in late June, Ukrainian troops had allegedly assessed their site operating by this company. The Ukrhim Transamiak executive stressed his concern that their location could be damaged due to military involvement, potentially causing the release of up to 566 tons of highly toxic liquefied ammonia. The site, an above-ground element of Soviet-built underground ammonia pipeline operated by Ukrhimtrans Amiak, is located roughly 2.5 kilometers north of the village of Novotroitsk in the Kiev-controlled portion of the Russian Donetsk People's Republic. Khtishev, head of Russian chemical, biological, and nuclear defense forces, stated that Ukrainian military had placed communication equipment at the location as a part of barbaric tactics used by the Kiev regime, which involves placing toxic chemicals in the areas where Russian troops operate and their subsequent detonation. The intention is to accuse our nation of intentionally causing the technological disaster and damage its reputation. The general stated the use of hazardous objects for military purposes violates the international humanitarian law. Khtishev also reiterated Russian accusations against the organization for their prohibition of chemical weapons, OPCW. Moscow says the international watchdog ignores Russian reports about Ukrainian violations of the Chemical Weapons Convention, while taking Kiev's allegations against Russia at face value. And yes, this is serious, by the way. 566 tons of highly toxic liquefied ammonia to be used by Kiev regime for to stage this massive provocation. That's quite something, isn't it? But yet again, this organization, OPCW, not going to even react on that. They're not going to even react on these statements of Russian high-ranking military official, because who controls OPCW, by the way? Who controls the IAEA? It's CIA, right? It's a Western ruling class. CIA, MI6, Mossad, and the rest of the garbage and terrorist organizations from the collective West. So, of course, they're not going to react on that, right? But it is good that Russian Defense Ministry is informing public, not just in Russia, but world community too, because let's keep it real, man. Western world is a tiny, right, compared to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world stands with Russia. That's how it is, and it is necessary to keep our friends informed about atrocities and criminal activities that are our enemies, that is the Western world and their proxies, are committing. That's it. TASS news agency is also reporting that, according to spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, a Russian delegation is ready to arrive in Istanbul for a third round of talks. And, I understand that the door for diplomacy should never be closed, but at this point, when all this stuff is happening, the US generals are threatening to wipe out Russian region and to kill hundreds of thousands of Russian citizens. Germany is threatening with long-range strikes, and their proxy of their collective West or Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky is threatening with their chemical disasters on industrial scale. statement that Moscow is ready to send delegation in Istanbul is kind of interesting, of course, because yet again, door for diplomacy should not be closed. But I don't know about that, man. The Russian delegation is ready to arrive in Istanbul for the third round of talks with the Ukrainian side. This was stated at the briefing by the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova. Okay, Moscow is ready to continue talks. Okay, and you know what? Some might say that these Istanbul talks were useless and a waste of time, and everybody has a right for on opinion, isn't it? But yet again, at least as a result of this Istanbul talks, some progress was reached in humanitarian direction, right? There was a POW exchanges that was taking place and will continue probably, and also Russian side transferred to Kiev regime thousands of bodies of killed Ukrainian military personnel. So families of this killed military personnel will have opportunity to say last goodbye to their loved ones, right? Although reports were in the media that Kiev regime is burning those bodies, by the way, and not giving it to the relatives. I see such reports in the media, but I don't know if that is true or not, but there were such reports too. Nevertheless, today, Russian media reported that there was another transfer of bodies of killed military personnel, and Russian side transferred 1,000 bodies of killed Ukrainian military personnel and 19 bodies of foreign Russian fighters were transferred to Russian side. In this second phase of transfer of the killed military personnel, bodies of the killed military personnel, Russia intends to transfer 3,000 bodies of Ukrainian military to Kiev regime. Today was transferred 1,000 bodies. Russia received 19 bodies of the killed Russian soldiers. In upcoming days, probably they will be second and third step in this direction, and another 1,000 and then 1,000 bodies will be transferred to Kiev regime. I remind you, dear friends, that according to media reports, including Western media reports, Russia actually is in a position to transfer some 40 to 60,000 bodies of their killed military personnel of Kiev regime's forces if Kiev is ready to receive, to accept this transfer. So this information clearly also demonstrates that these Istanbul talks were not complete waste of time, for sure, because in terms of humanitarian processes, significant some success was, some agreements were reached, and this humanitarian aspect can be seen as at least partial success. After all, there is a exchange, a transfer of killed bodies of killed military personnel, and also there was a POW exchanges, right? And there is an agreement in place that heavily wounded military personnel, heavily wounded POWs, by the way, should be exchanged shortly after these POWs end up in enemies' hands. So this is also humanitarian stuff, right? Meanwhile, Russian media is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated 3 settlements in the zone of special military operation. 3 more settlements, by the way. I mean, this is daily stuff, isn't it? Literally every day we are receiving news about liberation of this settlement and that settlement and so on. Although if one is only watching Western propaganda, by the way, if one is only receiving information from Western so-called media, they would not think that there is any movement on the line of contact whatsoever, because Western propaganda is still pushing the narrative of a stalemate, right? But nevertheless, reports are that Russian troops have liberated Diktyarnoye in the Kharkov region, Kamenskaya in Zaporozhye region, and this is a big deal, by the way. Big deal. Maybe indicator that Russia, who knows, maybe Russia is about to launch a sectoral scale offensive in the Zaporozhye region. And also, settlement of Popov Yar was liberated in Donetsk People's Republic. Let me show you on the map these settlements, dear friends. So this morning I reported about liberation of Diktyarnoye settlement right on a border. This is a Kharkov region, by the way, right on the border with the Russian Federation. Also, when it comes to Popov Yar, this is the settlement, by the way, of Popov Yar. This is Pokrovsk Mirnograd. No. I mean, one may say Pokrovsk Mirnograd direction, but to be more precise, this is Konstantinovka direction, probably in between Pokrovsk Mirnograd and Konstantinovka. And when it comes to Zaporozhye region, this is Kamenskaya settlement, and it is under full Russian control now, fully liberated. And I guess it's only a matter of, at this point, maybe even hours, and Russian troops will begin operations to liberate Plavny settlement, Stepnogorsk settlement, whatever settlements are on the northern side of Kamenskaya. And yet again, maybe we are about to observe a large scale or sectoral, let's say, scale offensive operation in the Zaporozhye region. And if so, I would expect offensive in Orekhov direction, Orekhov-Gulay-Pole direction. Let's see. But Kamenskaya, if you paying attention to developments on the line of contact, there was quite a long operational pause, sort of, in the Zaporozhye sector, right? Especially on the western part of Zaporozhye sector. And in the last couple of weeks, we began seeing significant activization of the Russian troops. Battle began for Kamenskaya, and it did not take long before entire settlement was liberated by Russian forces. So significant progress, for sure. And while Russian troops are achieving this progress on the line of contact, Kyiv regime, Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, is conducting reshuffle of its leadership. And Ukraine gets new defense minister, for example. Denis Shmyhal, that was a prime minister a couple of days ago still, is now defense minister. He replaced Rustem Umerov. And Rustem Umerov, according to reports, was, Kyiv regime was planning to appoint Rustem Umerov, former defense minister, as a U.S. As the ambassador of Kyiv regime into U.S. But allegedly, Washington declined this initiative of Kyiv regime, and therefore some other person was appointed as Kyiv regime's ambassador to Washington. And now question is who will lead the Ukrainian delegation in Istanbul if third round of talks will take place, because Rustem Umerov was head of Kyiv regime's delegation, isn't it? So that's the question that probably many people will ask: who gonna lead the Ukrainian delegation or Kyiv regime's delegation, let's say, into Istanbul if third round of talks will take place? I don't know. When it comes to prime minister of the so-called Ukraine, well, name of their new prime minister is Yulia Sviridenko, former finance minister or economic minister or something like that. Who cares, man? Really? I mean, who cares, right? I'm sharing this information just because the media is paying attention to it. But otherwise, Umerov is Ukraine's defense minister, Shmyhal, Pigal, any other freaking creature. Who cares, man? Does it make any difference? Not really, right? To continue, well, I shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page this post from one of the Telegram channels, big Telegram channels, by the way, Geopolitics Prime. And right now on your screen, you see, dear friends, territory that is carved with this yellow and green lines that Israel intends to occupy as buffer zone from with Syria. These are Syrian territories that are allegedly Israel plans to occupy, and this area called David's Corridor or something like that. David's Corridor. Okay, right. And if you notice the difference, this area, this is a southeastern Syria, of course, and a large portion of it is located in basically southern suburbs of Damascus, capital of Syria, right? And well, I said many times before that Syria is destined for a full-scale disintegration, and I guess on daily basis we are receiving more and more news that that's exactly what is going to happen. Meanwhile, Israel's, Turkish president, by the way, went on yet another fake outrage, right, due to Israeli attacks on Turkish proxy in Damascus, Turkish proxy regime in Damascus, led by al-Shara or whatever the name of that terrorist is. And Erdogan went to say that Israel acting as a terrorist state, and Israel does not recognize any laws, rules, or principles. Okay, I guess majority will agree with that statement that Israel does not recognize no laws, no rules, no principles. And majority of humanity probably will agree that Israel is acting as a terrorist state, fascist state, by the way. It's a fascist state, let's be real. Israel is a fascist state. Israeli society vastly is a fascist society. And Israel needs to be demilitarized, and Israeli society needs to be denazified, right? And that means society in Israel that is indoctrinated in Sikh ideology, based on which they think only they are humans and the rest of them are some subhumans or not even humans whatsoever. Those people have to undergo certain programs, by the way, as it was certain programs on denazification, as it was done with the Nazi Germany, with population of Nazi Germany after Second World War. It's absolutely necessary, by the way. Otherwise, Israel would not survive, by the way. Today, they might act tough. Today, they might commit genocide, mass killing of the people with impunity. But at some point, Israel gonna end up on the edge of extinction, because they cannot continue killing people left and right with impunity forever, by the way. It's just not happening. At some point, region will say that they've had enough and they will unite to wipe out Israel from the map. So if Israelis don't want this to happen, they should stop generating so much hate, by the way. They should stop killing people left and right, civilians, innocent people, in hundreds of thousands, right? And they should stop generating hate all over the world, especially in the Middle East. Otherwise, they would struggle to survive, to save their country. I mean, Israelis, right? They're fascists, by the way. They are fascists. When social studies are conducted and majority of society is saying that they are in support of cutting aid to Palestinians, when majority is saying that they are in full support of all their crimes that IDF committed, then that means their mentality is that means they're fucked up in the head, by the way, what that means, right? They're fascists. But when it comes to Erdogan, by the way, this fake creature really is, I don't think anybody really has any respect for this individual. And I don't think anybody really takes seriously his fake outrage that, Israel is doing this and Israel is doing that, when Turkey was cooperating with Israel during just a couple of weeks ago, by the way, when Israel was striking Iran. right? How Israeli planes end up in Azerbaijan? How? From Turkish airspace, right? Right? Yes, that's how it was. And Turkey was assisting Israel to strike Iran. And Turkey, despite all the harsh statements of its fake leadership, still continues, by the way, to cooperate with Israel. While Israel is literally exterminating civilians in the Gaza Strip and also in the West Bank, by the way. I mean, yes, their media is paying much more attention to Gaza Strip, but we should not forget that Israel is killing hundreds of civilians in the West Bank too, and taking homes of the people and jailing people for no reason whatsoever, and committing mass crimes against humanity, right? In the West Bank too. And Erdogan and his freaking regime and Turkish businesses that are affiliated with this regime still continue, or his criminal clan, by the way, still continue to do business with Israel. That's how fake this creature is, man, Erdogan. Scum of humanity, man. Also interesting report that France returns military base to Senegal, marking the end of its presence in West Africa. Well, something gooder is happening in Africa, greater in West Africa, by the way, which is struggling for so many years, isn't it, with constant instability. And, well, I see this news as something of positive. Colonizers should not have any place anywhere in this world, including on African continent. RT is also reporting that, dear friends, I spoke about it this morning, isn't it? That Trump called his supporters that are asking questions about Epstein files are stupid. Then he went to call them bad people, and that he don't want support of these people, right? And well, in September, Trump gonna go. And I'm interested, dear friends, what kind of reaction they will be in US on these outrageous, crazy statements of Trump when he's directly insulting his own supporters, right? This is next level of madness, obviously. But Trump is scheduled to visit UK in September, I believe, right? In mid-September, somewhere there. It's gonna be state visitor, so he's gonna be treated by royalty and by royal family, and it's gonna be some freaking show, right? Freak show. It's gonna be massive freak show, let's say. And some activists in UK, in London, in this particular case, come up with the idea to install these kind of banners, by the way, on bus stations, some other bus stops, and some other places with these two bodies, Epstein and Trump. As a reminder, and in this particular case, you are seeing bus stop, by the way, that is located not far away from U.S. Embassy. So maybe if Trump will go to U.S. Embassy, and probably he will during that visit, maybe he will be reminded that people are not willing to forget, neither in UK, neither in US, neither in anywhere in this world, by the way, because this Epstein story is not the topic that should be forgotten, right? Or forgiven, by them. Absolutely tremendous, horrible crimes were committed by despicable elements, right? That are rich, maybe extremely rich and extremely powerful in their collective West. But nevertheless, they should be put to trial, right? And the way to do this is to demand a real investigation. So Trump gonna be reminded in London. that he is forever will be now associated with Epstein and with the crimes that was committed on island, on mansions of Epstein, and God knows where else. And this story is not going away, for sure. This tragic story, by the way. Kommersant newspaper, meanwhile, is reporting that Russian Foreign Ministry files a protest with Japan over U.S. participation in exercises. The Russian Foreign Ministry has lodged a strong protest with the Japanese embassy in Moscow over the participation of the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force in the large-scale U.S. military exercises Resolute Force Pacific. They will take place near Russian Far East borders. And so, yes, by the way, we are encircled. I mean, what can I say? We are encircled from all sides by enemies, right? From the west, it's NATO, and from south, it's NATO, and in some cases, NATO proxies. Southwest, let's say. I mean, Turkey is southwest of Russia, right? Which is a NATO member state. And when it comes to Far East, by the way, I mean, many people, quite often probably forgetting that Russia is actually bordering with US, right? And there is a it's Bering Strait, right? Yes, I mean, am I correct? Yes, Bering of Praliv. So I'm getting older, by the way, and there are sometimes, even though when I was younger, my knowledge of geography was, I will say not bad, but with the years, memory is not that sharp, and if you are not using certain knowledge on a regular basis, you just might struggle to remember some stuff. So it is Bering Strait, of course, and there are two islands, by the way. Diamond Island. So there is a big Diamond Island, which is Russian, and small Diamond Island, which is American. And between the islands, it's only like a few miles, right? So there is only a few miles when it comes to distance between Russia and the US. Nothing to be said that Alaska itself was Russia, by the way, and at some point was sold to America, right? As many US states were sold either by France or by whomever, right? But nevertheless, on Far East, by the way, there is US, that is NATO, of course, when it comes to hostile states, and also Japan, which is extremely, tremendously hostile towards Russia, and South Korea also. Maybe South Korean leadership is trying to maintain some balance, but they are under such a heavy influence of their collective West that they should be considered a hostile to Russia too, right? So we are almost encircled by enemies, by the way, from almost all sides, and we need to do whatever is necessary to make sure that our enemy is not going to prevail. And if it comes to some serious confrontation, military confrontation, then we have to make sure that our enemy is not going to win. That's how it is. And I believe Russian nuclear forces can guarantee that if it comes to full-scale war between NATO and Russia, our enemy is not going to win. We might not win too, because we will also die, right? But our enemies will die too. That's a little comfort while on the way towards I don't know, hell or paradise or whatever. But, remember what Russian president said on this topic, that if it comes to war, and Russia don't want no war, by the way, but if collective West, if globalists and their allies, neocons and the rest, will continue escalating with Russia, and if eventually they will provoke full-scale war, then everybody will die, right? We will go to paradise, and our enemies will just die. And I agree with Putin on that. Yeah. I mean, will humanity survive 21st century, dear friends? I would not bet too much on that, because we are living in extremely crazy times, isn't it? We are living in extremely crazy times, and one more news to share, dear friends, in this news segment. Then let's have some little chat. So Georgia considers joining China's CIPC, aimed risks of being disconnected from SWIFT, and CIPC is a Chinese alternative to the SWIFT. So the National Bank of Georgia is discussing the possibility of cooperation with the Chinese cross-border interbank payment system, CIPC. The National Bank of Georgia reported after a meeting between its head, Natia Turnauer, and their CIPC president, Fu Yang, in Tbilisi, capital of Georgia. The parties discussed the possibilities of cooperation between the National Bank of Georgia and the CIPC, as well as issues related to simplifying access of the country's financial institutions to their global CIPC network. Their NBG, or National Bank of Georgia, which is central bank, by the way, press release stated, according to the head of NBG, cooperation with the CIPC will significantly simplify payments, transfers, and transactions between the two countries, and will also contribute to strengthening Georgia's role in the Middle Corridor project, Trans-Caspian International Transport Route. The CIPC president noted that the growing economic cooperation between Georgia and China will be reflected in the increase in a number of cross-border payments. China is one of Georgia's important trading partners. Developed efficient and secure payment infrastructure will be very useful for the future development of these relations, Fu Yang stated. During the visit to Tbilisi, CIPC management also held a meeting with the representatives of Georgian commercial banks. Okay, great, by the way. And what I want also to say with this news is that look at the level of weaponization, by the way, of Western financial and banking system. Globalists, I mean, Western so-called elites, by the way, are willing to use their financial and banking system literally against everybody they don't like, right? And they are actually, rumors are circulating quite a while now that Western elites actually considering to cut off Georgian banks from the SWIFT. Is that normal, dear friends? And they are considering this just because they failed to orchestrate a revolution, so-called color revolution in Georgia, and then to use Georgia against Russia, which means to sacrifice Georgia and the citizens of Georgia in the Western proxy war against Russia. And thanks to current leadership of Georgia, Western ruling class failed in these attempts, right? And to punish Georgian government and people of Georgia, they are considering now to cut off this country from the SWIFT, man. I mean, you tell me, how insane is that? And this information only highlights importance of creation of alternative financial and the banking system by BRICS member states, by the way. I mean, so much time has been lost, basically. I mean, some work is done in the BRICS, for sure, in direction of creating these alternatives, right, to the Western extremely weaponized financial and the banking system. I mean, some work is done in this area, but we need more, man. We need clear alternatives, right, from the BRICS, alternatives to the SWIFT, alternatives to Western financial system, man. And we don't have it, unfortunately, for now. Maybe next year Who knows? But it is what it is, man. And that's about it for this news segment, dear friends. I hope you find it informative and useful. And now let's have a little chat. Let's have a little chat, dear friends. And I will start. I will start with this message. There was a super chat, right? There was a super chat on. There was a super chat on Rumble, dear friends. So let me share this first of all. It takes a second, dear friends. So Viper 314206, thank you very much for your $20 donation and super chatter, which says hello, Levan. Hello, and truly grateful for your support and attention. Thank you. And dear friends, let's Ань, that's it. So thank you very much, and let's have a conversation now and exchange opinions. Daniela Modos is commenting that this man is crazy. I guess she's talking about this U.S. general, and I have to agree with you, Daniela, absolutely. That general is clearly insane, right? And I'm afraid he is not alone when it comes to political and military leadership of their collective West. I mean, seems like they really believe that they might defeat Russia. I don't know this belief is based on what, why they think that Russia would not use extreme force if it will come under attack of NATO. But it seems like that's what they believe, by the way, that Russia wouldn't retaliate or something, because otherwise, how anybody can say openly that they're gonna obliterate Russian region? I mean, this is insane, right? Dear friends, as always, capital Q will help me to notice the question if you have one. Smoky Sally is commenting, Levan, I was trying to tell you that Germany has been building up forces in Lithuania for... Yes, I know, Smoky Sally. Germany has its contingent in the Baltic states. Also, there are plans to build new divisions, new large military formations to deploy in the Baltics, in these Chihuahua states. And so, yes, Germany is preparing. Germany is definitely preparing. And as I said this morning, dear friends, I have maybe I'm wrong, but I got this feeling that Washington and London are planning to sacrifice Germany. Some other countries too, maybe Baltic Chihuahua states, but they kind of are planning to sacrifice Germany too, because they are in control of Germany, isn't it? Germany is an occupied country, and Washington and London are in full control of German political class, German political elites, military elites, intelligence, right? We should keep that in mind. This Mertz's regime does not represent German people. I mean, they don't represent German people, right? Merz is not representative and most popular party in Germany. I mean, what we are talking about. And I really hope some miracle will happen and people will wake up in the Western countries, in Germany, by the way, in others, because their countries being actually clearly pushed towards war with Russia. And do these people want war with us? I don't want war with anybody, but I mean, I'm an ordinary Russian citizen, right? And if you ask me, I don't seek no war. I don't want no war with nobody, right? Why should a ordinary German or ordinary French or ordinary Brit should seek war with us, man? It's nonsensical, right? But if those people been indoctrinated in Germany or in France, Italy, UK, if they've been indoctrinated, brainwashed so much so that they truly believe that if not today, tomorrow, we or Russians gonna come and take over their countries and occupy and that kind of nonsense. If majority in the West truly believes in this crap, then of course they're not gonna challenge their elites, right? That are pushing this world towards the Third World War. And this is a big issue, isn't it? I don't know why there is no emergency activity in alternative media in among these maybe small minorities in the Western countries, but well-informed minorities that understand that we are on the edge of catastrophe, right? Why there is no this sense of emergency? I don't get it really. I clearly see situation as to be extremely dangerous. I mean, we are getting closer and closer. I mean, this Merz is talking about long-range strikes on Russia. U.S. general is talking about wiping out Russian region. Trump is issuing threats every other day. London, Paris. I mean, it seems like they're all going crazy. Absolutely right. Where is this sense of emergency, man? I don't know. I don't know. Thank you, Smokey Sally. And dear friends, there was a super chat also on Viper. Thank you very much. Viper has become a monthly supporter on Rumble, premium subscriber. So thank you very much, Viper, for your support. I appreciate it. And let's continue, dear friends, our conversation. Svetlana Vladimirova is saying hello, everybody, and hello, Svetlana. I'm glad that you are here, and you feel better, so you are actively commenting. Be careful, please, because bikes are some serious stuff, isn't it? I would not dare to drive bike. I don't know, first of all, but nevertheless. Recently, me and my family members were walking in a city in the central part of Moscow, and unfortunately, like 10 meters away from us, biker crashed. He survived. I was filming at the moment. I was I was recording a video for Patreon and Boosty, and I stopped filming. I went to check the biker. He survived. I mean, speed was not as high, and so he was he did not lose consciousness, and he was reacting, and the ambulance was called straight away. Many bikers, I guess, from same club stopped around, and he will recover, this biker that crashed. But I mean, it's a dangerous, man. It's dangerous. It was a Saturday, and so many bikes, and sometimes in this particular case, speed was not that big, and some car, by the way, crashed on bike. I mean, touched a little bit on her backside, and that was enough to lose her concentration. I mean, it's a bike, isn't it? And that's what caused the crash. But it's dangerous stuff. So I'm glad you are okay, Svetlana, and you are back in our chat. Once again, dear friends, hello everyone, and there are many and hello to potentially new members that are joining the stream first time, maybe. I'm testing these late streams. I did a stream at 7 o'clock quite a few times, at 5 o'clock, also at 11 o'clock. Rita Moniz is commenting, only country like Russia admits that its capital city be attacked in any way possible as an order or instruction of a given country. It's not a characteristic of a superpower if they allow it. Well, Russia is not allowing this, right? Russia is issuing warnings towards NATO not to escalate, right? Not to escalate, but clearly Western leadership is not listening. Globalists and their controlled governments among NATO countries are not listening. They are escalating, and at some point, I guess Moscow will have no option but to take some strong steps. And by the way, I mean, it is. I think we should be a little more appreciative of restraint that Russian leadership is demonstrating. I myself, many times have said that I personally finding it difficult to understand this restraint, because this is true, by the way. I find it difficult to understand this restraint, but at the same time, I know perfectly well that my knowledge is based on whatever information I have from open sources, right? I don't have no other source of information. So therefore, my knowledge is a literally drop in the ocean compared to knowledge that Russian leadership has, right? Because they have access to all the classified information, right? That there is. So their decisions may not be understandable to me, but that not necessarily means that those decisions are incorrect. That means that what that means is that I personally don't understand something, right? So therefore, I think all of us, all over the world, by the way, should be a little more appreciative of restraint that Russian leadership has demonstrated for so long. But yet again, everything that has its beginning has its end also, right? And that can be said about patience of Russian leadership and restraint of that Russian leadership is exercising. And yet again, when situation is degenerating towards the levels when U.S. acting general is threatening to wipe out entire Russian region, then I mean, I can imagine reaction of Russian president. By the way, probably when he will be told about it, or when he will read about it, or probably he will say, you know what? Probably, by the way, I mean, he will say that with these people, diplomacy would never work, right? So that's why I'm saying, by the way, if there is any chance to wake up Western society somehow, let's do it, by the way, because it's only Western societies that can actually try at least to put some pressure on their own elites. Otherwise, tomorrow or day after might be literally too late. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, Erdogan is like a little finger from Game of Thrones, if you watched it. Thank you for your comment, Nidish. I did watch Game of Thrones, but I was... usually I watch a TV series, I'm just not scrolling, but if I'm not interested in that particular scenery, then I might, fast track it. So I'm not really watching in full understanding of full meaning of that, but I did watch it some parts, and unfortunately, probably I missed that episode that you're talking about. And who was a little finger in Game of Thrones? Do you remember? You don't remember either, right? I don't remember, but thank you for your comment. Erdogan is a, or maybe I remember that skinny guy, isn't it? That eventually was executed by a youngest sister of this guy. That was a night watcher or something. Am I correct? That who was and if that is correct, then yes, I mean Erdogan is acting exactly like that, like a snake, man. Yeah. Nidish Kumar is commenting, the one breaking news: Cambodia and Thailand is about to go to war. Wow, that's too bad. Let me right now check some of the Russian media outlets. Maybe they already begun pummeling each other. Um, I didn't see on Russian leading news agencies anything on that, sir, at this point, but it is bad, man. I was thinking that they managed to de-escalate, but well, things like I was wrong. Too bad, man. This world definitely don't need no more wars, man. Uh, I will try to find out some news on this topic for tomorrow's first live stream, and if I find anything in Russian media, then I will report about it for sure. Thank you. Alexander G is commenting Bering Strait. Yes, Bering Strait between Russia and Alaska, of course. Bering Strait. Sometimes, by the way, I mean, maybe because of I mean tired or something, but I want to remember something that is so simple, so simple. And I know that I know this right, and maybe because I've been tired or something, I struggle to remember, right? So, like with capitals of their cities. I mean, when you are in a journalism, by the way, there is a few major requirements, right? You have to, and I'm in journalism since I was 17, right? That's when I began my journey in this field, and some 30 plus years ago. And main requirements in journalism is one of the main requirements is to be as educated as you possibly can, especially in fundamental subjects, right? Geography, history, and geography, I mean political and geological geography, history, of course, physics, and many fundamentals. You have to know fundamentals, by the way. And at one point when I was young, by the way, you could tell me any country in this world, and I would tell you what is the capital. Right now I am not sure that I would give you all the capitals, because I'm yet again age, right? We are getting older, and memory is working in its specific ways, and if you are not using certain information long enough, then this information goes deep inside some memory, and when you need it, you're just not quick enough to remember, right? Nidish Kumar is also commenting, Levan, if Ukraine joins NATO scenario, will Russia make deal with Cuba like that of Belarus? No, Ukraine not going to join NATO. It's not possible, by the way. I mean, Western Ukraine will join NATO eventually because Poland, Hungary, and Romania will reclaim that part. But rest of the territory is a Russian territory and will either join Russia or will if some parts of this modern Ukraine will maintain statehood or quasi-statehood, that will happen only in the sphere of Russian influence, completely free from the West. So I don't see even theoretical chances Ukraine actually joining NATO in its modern form. By the way, yet again, parts of Ukraine, I mean Western part, eventually yes will become a part of NATO and the EU because Poland is a NATO and EU member, right? And Hungary is a NATO and the EU member, and Romania. But rest is out of question, by the way. Me personally, only one question I have is, will entire rest of the Ukraine will join Russia, or maybe in addition to new regions, Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy, Nikolaev and Odessa regions will join Russia, potentially Poltava region, and Kiev and surrounding couple of regions will maintain quasi-statehood. I mean, that's the only questions I have. Either will entire this territory will join Russia, or just few more regions where eventually referendums have to take place, of course, and people have to decide. It's up to people, of course, but I have not even slight doubts that Ukraine, modern Kiev-controlled territory, let's say, never ever will join NATO. It's impossible. But when it comes to, Russian, let's say, military presence in Cuba, I don't know. If US continues to behave in a way it does, then anything is possible, isn't it? Then anything is possible, and maybe not so much Russia, but China might actually end up having a military presence in Cuba. China, by the way, if US is messing around Taiwan, then which is a part of China, then why shouldn't China lease some naval base in Cuba and bring its warships with their medium range nuclear tipped missiles? Why not? Or a couple of nuclear submarines. China has a financial means or economical means, military means to do so, and also it's when it comes to global scale, by the way, we'll understand that major competitors are China and US, China and the collective West, or global South and the collective West, right? In which China is a dominant force. Russia is a major nuclear power, and Russia can obliterate literally entire planet several times over, right? But if we take out from the conversation nuclear weapons, then there is US military power, and also China, by the way. I will say China is without nukes being taken in consideration, then China is definitely second military power, by the way, if you take into account Navy and their capabilities also, right? Manpower, potential reserve, and manufacturing capabilities. China is building in a single month, I believe, more stuff that US can do in years. So, China may actually end up being presented militarily in Cuba, but Russia, I don't think so, because it just why? It's just waste of money, isn't it? Just to make US little more nervous and waste on that billions of dollars that will be necessary every single year to maintain base and so on. No, I mean, China can do this because they have so much money, they don't know what to do with it. But Russia is okay, I guess. I would love to see further economical cooperation between Russia and Cuba. I'm in full support of that economical cooperation. But when it comes to Russian bases outside of Russia, I don't really see that to be necessary, and that's why I would support withdrawal of Russian military base from my bases from Syria, for example. I would support withdrawal of Russian military base from Armenia, right? Because it costs a lot, and in terms of Russian national interests, I don't, what this base is doing in terms of Russian national interests. I mean, arguments might be made, but in case of Armenia, Yerevan, it's only a matter of time, and Yerevan will anyway demand withdrawal of Russian base. So let's act. Let's be proactive. Let's withdraw base on our own, and not allow Yerevan to then brag about forcing Russian troops out. And when it comes to Syria, it's just too freaking risky, by the way, right? If Russia, if Alawites, by the way, in Latakia province will gain independence, and in Latakia, I believe Alawites are in the majority, or they have significant presence. If Latakia will gain independence, okay. In that case, I might see presence of Russian Navy there to have some, to be useful, right? In geopolitical terms, right? Because Latakia province is basically any energy project from Middle East to be connected with Mediterranean have to go through Latakia province, right? So if Alawites will gain independence, Alawites are Shiite Muslims, right? Then Russian presence there will make sense to me, but otherwise, right now, I see no reason why our troops are risking their lives there. So I don't really want Russian bases in Cuba or in Mexico or in somewhere else, by the way. It's too costly, right? Also, Nidish Kumar is asking, Levan, how does Baltic countries' terrain looks like? Is Kaliningrad on a higher ground than those countries? Oh, I cannot. I mean, there is no high ground there. Basically, it's a low ground areas. Kaliningrad might be a little higher than Baltic states, but it's not mountainous area, right? It's not mountainous area. It's a low ground with the forestry, and I mean, let's take a look at the map, dear friend. I mean, this is the area that we are talking about. So, and I can turn into mixed map. I mean, it does not give us much, really. Okay, I see now. So So let's return this map. So if you take a look, dear friends, I mean, it's a little hills, fields, forestry, and that's about it. It's somewhat similar in Kaliningrad, in Lithuania, in Latvia, and Estonia. Estonia might have a little more hills and that kind of stuff in northern eastern side, but this is not mountainous regions, right? Forestry, yes. Fields, yes, but you know, swamps, by the way, yeah. But yeah, if it comes to battle, as I said this morning, dear friends, look at the map. This is Kaliningrad here. This is Belarus, right? And so Russia will have no option but to establish land bridge with Kaliningrad. And the only way this land bridge can be established is through Belarus, either from Polish side through Suwalki Gap, which is here, by the way, right? And it's called Suwalki Gap because there is a settlement, Suwalki or something like that here, right? It is, by the way. It's Suwalki area. There is Suwalki Park, by the way, this forestry, and this is the city of Suwalki, right? So either this land bridge has to be built on the Polish side or from Lithuanian side, or maybe both, and Russia will have no option but to do this, once missiles and bombs began to be deployed, then Russia will take care of the situation. These delusional political and military elites of the collective West gonna learn hard way that they should not ever mess around Russia. That's how it's gonna be. And so, dear friends, I guess this is it for this second live stream. Sorry if I miss your question, dear friends, but we had a good conversation, isn't it? And my hope is that new segment itself was interesting and useful. Many other channels, by the way, gonna talk about these crazy statements of U.S. general, and of course statements from Merz also gonna be in discussed in alternative media. So I shared all this stuff this evening, and tomorrow probably I will pay some attention to these topics also, especially if we will have some comments from Russian side, from Russian leadership. Let's see. Thank you very much, dear friends, for your attention, for your support. Have a wonderful day, and take care. See you tomorrow.